Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom brought to you by K-12 Sports Tech and our regular sponsors. Um, Before we meet today's Wednesday Wisdom guest, as always, we're going to give our sponsors a shout out. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director or have got a direct connection to, and I highly recommend them to you. So take a couple of minutes, listen to our sponsorship shout outs, then listen to our guest, and then go visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank K-12 Sports Tech for sponsoring our Wednesday Wisdom segments. K-12 Sports Tech helps athletic directors and sport vendors connect through education and hands-on consulting services. Athletic directors are also invited to join the K-12 Sports Tech AD think tank and help influence how companies shape their tech to better serve schools. To find out more information or to join the think tank, all you have to do is go to k12sportstech.com. That's k12sportstech.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for sponsoring the podcast. Go to their website and take a look at their interactive touchscreen, that's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply share your school's unique history and your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank Snap Raise. If you're looking for a fundraiser, stop. You found it. Snap Raise is hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, I'm telling you, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, uploading rosters, communicating with everybody in your program. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Home Campus will help you do these things better, faster, and you're going to have a lot more time left in your schedule. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. You know, kids and their parents are on social media today. And if you're not posting about your athletes or about your teams, you're really missing out. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class marketing content in seconds. And it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We also want to thank Huddle. As a football coach, I had used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I wanted a platform that would work for all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches loved it, our parents loved it, the kids loved all the tools that Huddle provided that let our coaches do their job better. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more, and it happens to be the leading digital ticketing platform for high schools and colleges. Hometownticketing.com. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, Hometown is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. We also want to say thanks to the Ohio University Online Master Program. This is an affordable 20-month online master's program focusing exclusively on interscholastic athletic administration. When you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you'll have 11 NIAAA leadership courses that go towards your RAA or your CAA. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Master's Program. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. You know, at my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for student athletes, for parents, for coaches, and the information that came back was incredibly valuable because it wasn't just the people who wanted to complain. It included the people that supported our program. And that information was incredibly valuable to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or a student athlete, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey for your school that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. And we want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo, see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products today. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We've got a first-time member of our Wednesday Wisdom team. Very excited to have Dr. Courtney Beck join us. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you'll remember Dr. Beck was on a recent episode of our full podcast, shared her story, has a tremendous background in athletics. She was a Division I All-American athlete. As I mentioned, it's Dr. Courtney Beck. She's a adjunct faculty member at the Florida State University in sport management. She's a coach. She's a women's sport advocate. It's gotten her MBA. I probably left about 12 things out, but Dr. Courtney Beck, welcome to Wednesday Wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake.
Well, you and I were talking. It's springtime. The heat's starting to crank up in Florida and probably other parts of the country. What do you have for our listeners this time on Wednesday Wisdom?
So today we are going to be focusing on navigating life transitions for student athletes in general. And this could definitely apply to those high school ADs as far as information intake, as well as collegiate D1, D2, D3, for that matter, ADs as well, to help maybe by sharing my experience as an athlete and just the professional experience after I graduated, if that can maybe just provide a little bit of maybe insight into what a student athlete is going through, as well as provide maybe some research too at the end, and a call to action as to how we can make those life transitions easier for the student athlete as they're there, obviously, those 4 years to gain knowledge, to have amazing experiences, meet new people. But then at the end, we have to look forward, right? We have to be ready for that professional experience if they're moving on to that job interview right after graduation, or maybe during those 4 years, they're trying to obtain that job interview to get that job right lined up right after graduation. So I always like to start any type of discussion with a positive quote. So today I thought this was very appropriate, if you will, for what I'll be discussing. So before anything else, preparation is the key to success. Alexander Graham Bell. And so the key word there is preparation. So just in life, as we go through new chapters, we always have to prepare our best in order to obviously later on be met with success as an end result. So just to give a little bit of a background and to share with the audience my experience not only as an athlete, but into the professional realm, corporate America, back to academia for grad school, all those life transitions, and kind of what types of emotions I was going through during each kind of segment of my life. And maybe that could help the audience, and then to give back to those student athletes. So to first begin, as an elite level athlete in the sport of gymnastics, at that point of your life, obviously, you're really focusing on balancing academics and athletics. It's such an early age. So this is maybe going to be gearing towards maybe those ADs in high school. So navigating those early ages, as you would go through that, for the athlete, they're overcoming a lot of emotions. Maybe they get injured, the highs of winning, but then the lows of losing, and how to be able to emotionally cope with that. And I've had the privilege and the honor to mentor a young woman. I had actually coached her, and then throughout the years would also help her to present day in the sport of gymnastics. And so as we would move forward, my experience as a former D1 athlete would entail a multitude of not only emotions, but you're experiencing so many new things, right? Picking out your major, figuring out how that's going to, how you're going to utilize that major as you move forward out of graduation, topped with competition season, competitive season, balancing all of this together, let alone, like I said, if you're an athlete, you have injuries sometimes. How about even balancing social life? Getting out there, meeting new people, right? Forming those social networks. I had a discussion actually recently with a friend and how special it is when you find that friend in college and you're able to take that through with your life because they've known you right from that start, right from that exciting time of your life. And so there's a lot of things you're balancing at the collegiate level. As I would move forward, I would, I was a little lost. Okay. I came home, grad school kind of put me back in place a little bit at that point of my life. Moving forward, I wanted to jump into sales. And so that transition with heavy structure from an athletic standpoint, time management skills really helped me as I transitioned into corporate America. When I was in corporate America, I feel the the life lessons that I had learned as an athlete, like I said, balancing time management, commitment to a goal, especially in sales, obviously given certain goals, per quarter, if you will. But a lot of those life lessons were able to translate, even though in a different sense. You're obviously not physically out there on the floor performing, but in another sense, you are still performing as an individual. From sales, I would go back to grad school at this point in my life. I'm in my late 20s, and I realized how valuable education is. You get to pair it up with a lot of life experience, professional experience, um, making mistakes, learning from those lessons. And then moving forward, I would become a professor, just as you mentioned, an adjunct professor at Florida State University. And so I've been very honored to have different experiences. You have corporate America, you have academia, you have physically the challenge of an athlete, emotionally, mentally going through all of these stages of life. And so when we talk about preparation, drawing back to that quote, preparation in order to obtain that success, the importance of, I'm going to take it back to just undergraduate years. If I could look back simply from my experience, if I could look back, I wish that there was more of that formation of pulling the athletes together, for example, being able to share in with that community, to to be able to cheer others on in different sports. Sometimes we get so focused because, of course, limited due to time. That's obvious, but you get so focused on your sport, your team in general, that it's always nice to be able to meet other people. Because as we know in life, networking is so key. You never know later on if you're able to even team up with somebody else, maybe start a business, start a company, or if you figure that, or you see that they're in an area of study 5 years later out of college, hey, that's interesting. Maybe I want to like just pick their brain about that. So I do think it's critical at the collegiate level to maybe have opportunities for student athletes to come together, to actually get to know one another outside of their sport, have the ability to engage in like leadership positions, where they're actively contributing back to like a certain maybe club, group, organization that maybe could be formed, because it's allowing them to be in the driver's seat. You know, we always talk about, you know, leadership skills, communication skills, but what does that actually look like, you know, when you apply it? What could that look like for the student athlete for preparation into life? And so I believe, pulling everybody together, the formation of an alumni network, staying in touch with those alumni as soon as they leave is critical. Because in my opinion, I wish I would have had an opportunity to listen to maybe student athletes that are only 3 years out. We always want to talk to those who have those big titles, which is great. Absolutely, it's great. But realistically, when you're going through those entry level jobs, to be able to gain advice or to listen to experience from those maybe just 3 years out, they could provide that transition, which will probably be equivalent to your next transition. Looking at the big picture, that's when it's excellent to have those vice presidents, those CEOs come in, because they offer that, wow, like I could be that one day, right? But of course, it takes time. So even sharing with some research to be paired with it, this was an area during my PhD program I was very passionate about, simply because I experienced it. As I mentioned before, I focused a lot on simply academics, gaining more knowledge in that area of study. My area of study was advertising for undergrad. Student athlete, of course, you're just go time from August all the way to April. And so I wish that someone would have told me, speak to professors more, get to know them, pick their brain. Hey, at the end, if I would have had the courage, and that was another thing, I was more reserved, I guess you could say. But if I was put in those situations where I could communicate, like I said, in an open, if you had open panels, for example, with those former student athletes afterwards to build that network, just to get out of your comfort zone, so to speak, to talk to somebody that maybe you don't know, obviously, in that case, I think is critical. So with research, what was found within like my dissertation, obviously could get pretty complex in explaining it, but in simple terms, um, there was summarized themes and something that was found for female student athletes, what they were really talking about, what they really wanted. And this could even be applied for high school ADs too, just to think, like I said, but this is more in the lens of for former female student athletes as well as current female student athletes. But mentorship, student development, communication, community, and leadership skill development. So I think something that's interesting, and Jake, maybe you could just maybe chime in, but the importance of communication skills and generally speaking, anything that these student athletes may be going into. What is your take on communication and the importance of it?
Well, everything you shared is absolutely spot on. Whether it's high school athletic director or for a college AD working with undergraduates or even graduate students. I guess we talk about as coaches, because you're a coach, I'm a coach. We talk about training strength and we train speed and we train flexibility. We train sports skills. Now it's much more, let's say, popular, for lack of a better word, because people understand how effective it is of training, the mental performance aspect. Well, your point about, hey, this is all great for our competitive athletes, but we are also very few of them, very, very few are going to go to the Olympics and become pro, but every single one of them is going to go on into life. So why don't we train? And you alluded to it, leadership, how to be a positive member of society. If it's going to be a father, a mother, a partner, And part of that leadership, oh, by the way, is communication. And, whether it's, the shy and reserved person or the bombastic, confident, overconfident, cocky, conceited, and everything in between, giving them what I like to say, tools in their toolbox.
Yes.
That's how we succeed as coaches. So I hope that wasn't too long of an answer to get to the point.
I think it was fantastic, Jake. And I think that's something to say about the positivity that could come out of athletics, all these life lessons. Like I said, you're communicating with your coach, you're communicating with your teammates, you have to come together with that shared goal, but how that could translate into other aspects of life. And then circling back around, like I said, with that call to action for these ADs. And like I said, some of this is from shared experiences. Some of it, when we first started Women in Sports Association, it was something that I wish I had like where you had speakers come in and you have the opportunity to get up and introduce yourself to them. And so that is something I think is so critical. Community. A better time ever than now. We need to come together, sharing that community, understanding, talking through things. Maybe some others have exactly their path and they thought about this through the years. Others may be struggling, like myself when I was going through undergraduate years. It would have been nice just to speak with somebody else who's going through the same thing. Rally female student athletes together. And this goes, like I said, even for those male student athletes too. This is certainly applicable. This is just simply speaking from my experience. But to come together, share those experiences, have those clubs, organizations where the student athlete is getting hands-on experience, not only from their athletics, right? But they're now off the field, so to speak, and they're able to be maybe a president of an organization, vice president, taking into account, of course, time constraint, which is totally respectable. A lot of colleges do have other organizations currently that are in place, but to be able to maybe expand those positions where those student athletes get maybe more access to community service in their local area, but they're in charge of it, right? They then could take that experience and speak about it in their resume, because a lot of student athletes, as we know, they are not able due to time constraint to get that hands-on experience for maybe a half a year, full year because of their schedule. So that's what's important is maybe forming groups where the student athletes have that hands-on experience before they graduate, making that smooth transition much smoother than it was for me. And then also to the preparation, you're preparing these student athletes for life. They've excelled on the field. Now they're ready to basically, open their wings, and the world is their oyster at this point. But not only that, they're prepared to do so.
Well, you made me think, and I'm sure there's more than this, but there's two states. One is Michigan, and the great Meg Singh, longtime athletic director there, and the other one that I'm aware of. Like I said, I'm sure there's many more in Oregon, run by Missy Townsend, another longtime AD. That they are targeted, girl, women in sport leadership symposiums and camps. I think Meg's in Michigan is a week long. I think Missy's is maybe 3 or 4 days long. And they're, to your point, reaching out to girls, in this case, high school girls that are involved in student athletics that, they have female role models. They talk about leadership. They talk about life. And so if you're listening to this and you're in a state that doesn't have that, why don't you take that call to action, as Dr. Beck has shared, and do something. And whether it's a girl and athlete symposium or something else, let's do what we can to continue to help all of our student athletes, but particularly our underrepresented women, to not just have great athletic careers in high school or college, but have great life careers as well.
Yes, and one thing I wanted to add, Jake, was cost, of course, could always be maybe some of concern, whether that be at a different levels of, like I said, D1, D2, D3, or into the high school arena. But that's why it's so important to stay in touch with alumni, because a lot of alumni want to be able to share their experiences and to help those generations coming up. And so having just discussions, if they're willing to come back and share their experience because they're excited to help that next generation, I just wanted to add that point. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but simply to share conversation, 1 2 minute introduction after the seminar, so to speak. I think that's what's critical. That'll give these student athletes the confidence they need moving forward.
Oh no, absolutely. Who better to, identify with and, listen to their story than someone who walked in their shoes maybe just a few years earlier, very cool stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
Courtney, always a pleasure to hang out with you. If one of our listeners wanted to add you to their network, and listeners, I think you have a tremendous resource here. What's the best way that they can get in touch with Dr. Courtney Beck?
Well, first off, Jake, thank you so much for having me on Wednesday Wisdom. This was obviously my first time, so I'm completely honored to be here. But you could reach me at cabeck at fsu.edu. So cabeck at fsu.edu. I'm also on LinkedIn. Um, Tons of Courtney Becks out there. So if you could please look for adjunct professor at Florida State University, I would love to read. I would love to hear from you and to chat on this particular subject. I'm very passionate about it because it did impact me as a young woman as I would take off into my career. So I'm willing to help in any way I can or share any experiences that I can further.
Courtney, thanks again for joining our team. We are honored to have you a part of our little group, and all the best moving forward with all of your many activities up there in Tallahassee.
Well, thank you so much, Jake.
Okay. For listeners, we want to say thanks to you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this every single week, and we try to share best practices and interviews just about every day. So come back next time for another great segment on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Always a great time with Dr. Courtney Beck. Before we go, of course, we want to give our sponsors a shout out, particularly K-12 Sports Tech, because they are sponsoring our Wednesday Wisdom segments. We also want to thank all of our other great sponsors. Now, you've heard me say this before. These are companies that I used as an athletic director or I've got a direct connection to. You should use them too. So reach out and contact them. Gipper, go to gipper.com. Home Campus, that's homecampus.com. Sideline Interactive, sidelineinteractive.com. Athletic Surveys, athleticsurveys.com. The Ohio University Master in Athletic Administration program, go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. That's it, MAA. Vital Signs Wall of Fame, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Hometown Ticketing, that would be hometownticketing.com. Snap Raise, go to snapraise.com. And our good friends at Huddle, go to huddle.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.